47 years ago, a man now known as Zambia Air Force Commander was born in Solwezi, northwestern province of Zambia, from Eric Barry and Agnes Hazel Barry. His father was an expatriate teacher from England, while his mother was a Kaunda lady from northwestern province.
I was born in Solwezi, in a farmhouse. My grandfather was a very famous person in Solwezi by the name of Mr. Hazel. Hazel. H-A-Z-E-L-L. His daughter, he was Zambian. He was, his grandfather was, I think, the DC in Kasempa back in the days before independence. So that's how we got the name Hazel. But he was born to a Zambian mother, and his name was John Hazel, my grandfather. So his firstborn daughter is Agnes Hazel. That's my mother. And my father was British, Mr. Eric Barry. And for anybody who was in school doing technical drawing, doing woodwork, metalwork, they would know Mr. Barry. That was a famous name in the schools. He was a head teacher, he was head of department for technical studies at Kamwala in the 80s. Most of my older generation, citizens and even maybe people who are in highly placed positions will tell you that they knew of that. There were some school books that were his. He had written, and everybody used them. Even today, they're still in school. E. Barry. So he came in from England in the 60s. Sorry, 67 is when he came into Zambia. Married my mother, and I have how many brothers now? We're 6 altogether. 1 sister and 5 brothers. Let me count them nicely first. Yeah, I think so we're 6. Okay, so four brothers. I'll get back to you there. Okay. I don't want to misquote my own brothers and sisters. But so anyway, I was born in Solwezi at that farmhouse when my grandfather's farm. I grew up in Solwezi, primary school at Kikombe Primary. First of all, when my father was here in Lusaka, I was at International School of Lusaka up to grade 3. That was when the schools. I started in 1979. I think I was 5 years old. 1979, 80, 81, I think 82, 83. About there, that's when we moved back to Solwezi. Went into grade 4 at Kikombe Primary School. Finished my grade 7 there. Went to Solwezi Technical School, the famous SOTEC, and I went up to grade 11 there. Ended up going to England with the family, with my father. When he retired, decided to go and try it out in England. So went and stayed there for about 2-3 years. 2 years, actually, because I went back. I did my grade 11 and 12 at UK. In Cornwall was where we stayed, in a school in Cornwall, where I was a prefect there. Within just the first 3 months of being in school, became a prefect at that school. I finished my school there in 91. I came back to Zambia and joined the Air Force in 1993. So 93 to date, that's about what? 27 years? 28 years? 28 years, right? And yeah, so that's when I joined the Air Force. So I'm married. I have my beautiful wife, Charmaine, who is from Chirundu, also from very humble backgrounds, grew up in a very rural place in those days, similar to what Solwezi was. And we have 3 kids together. There's Reese, he's 18, about to go to university. There's Kaylin, You spell it Kaeelin.
Yeah. How old is
Collin is 16. Then there's Ashlyn, Ashlin, the noisemaker of the family. He's 10 years old.
Growing up in Solwezi, Lieutenant General Barry, as a white boy, never had it easy, as he was a regular victim of racism and bullying from other children.
About growing up in Solwezi, I can tell you I didn't have it easy. I didn't have it easy. On a personal note, I found it difficult because, and I don't want to say too much, because I mean we're all young, but a white boy in a school where predominantly we're all dark-skinned, I was not accepted. I was not. I was bullied a lot, made fun of, called names, and I think that's something that I was very sensitive about that time. And so even from my primary school, there are very few people that I would even remember now as friends. Yeah, and being that's Solwezi. I mean, you can understand that, and there was nothing wrong with people, using bad language against you because of your color, even in the schools. Because we were told to run with, to take off shoes, because not everybody could afford sneakers. So PT, what we call PE those days, take off shoes. Now my feet are they're soft, very soft. I can hardly walk on anything. But I had to. I was not given any leeway. I had to remove my shoes and limp around on the football pitch. So again, I think in all those ways it was not. When you talked of things like sunburn, sunburn was not something you'd know. And when teachers would tell you get out in the sun, you'd get home sick. But nevertheless, I soldiered on. I went into the Boy Scouts when I was in primary school, and I became the Scout Police. I was even commanding police, rather Boy Scout flights, at the age of about maybe 10, 11, somewhere there. So, and I remember meeting the late president, our first Republican president, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda. When he came to Solwezi, I was actually sick. I had chickenpox. But I insisted on being on the parade to see the president. And I remember for the first time seeing him in the flesh, and I just remember him putting his hand on my head and saying, "Well done, young man," with his handkerchief. So that was at on an Independence Day, I think, in Solwezi, at the airport. Secondary school, people get mocked for being fat, for being thin, for being short, and I was one of those just for being white. But again, I quickly got over it. I have a humorous way of dealing with things. I don't take things to heart. When I was young, yes, because you can imagine in those days at school, where if I was in grade 5, then I was 10 years old. I sat on a desk with a man who had a beard and had children. And that was in grade, I think grade 7. So now you can imagine, if this guy is bullying you, what do you do? What can you say? And this was the thing. We went in that school and there was nothing. There were small desks. If you were lucky, you sat on a desk. If not, you sat in the corner on a brick. And these were places where we were told to bring blocks to school to help build the school. Partially the classrooms were done, others were not. So, I mean, it was a rough place. So even just coming from International School of Lusaka, and I used to travel with my parents, my dad, to the UK quite often, then to come back and get into that school with that sort of environment, yeah, it was challenging. But I got, like I said, when you get older, then people around you tend to sympathize with you, and then also, when you're at secondary school, it's more about performance. And I can't say I was always number 1 in my class, but at least I was giving them a run for their money. I was either 3, 4, 2, maybe, I don't think I even got 1. Maybe once I must have gotten 1. And that was to my father's annoyance, because he says, I'm a teacher in this school. And he was my teacher as well, when we were in Solwezi. So he says, how do you fail to beat some of these others But it wasn't something that he'd really rub into, to keep on irritating me. No, he'd say it once and we would laugh it off. But I think there I got the respect because of my academic prowess, I think. At least Nikamba Nyanja sometimes, but I speak Nyanja in my broken way. Okay. But I think I get by very well. I've spent a lot of my time in the south, but in the military. And in the military, it's predominantly Nyanja you're speaking. It's the most common language. So I managed to get by. Tonga, I can understand. Kaonde, I understand. When I try and speak it, I tend to mix up. When I forget now, I start going to Nyanja again. But my grandfather, when I was in Solwezi, whenever we visited him, he would always insist that when you are in my house, you speak Kaonde. So we used to speak it, but it was just, to avoid being laughed at by your grandfather. Yeah, but so I have a fairly good understanding of the language. People say I'm fluent in speaking it. I'll be honest, I'm not fluent, but I can understand you fluently, as well as Bemba, Nyanja. Tonga, somewhere there. Lozi, I'm lost.
Being a pilot is a dream come true for Lieutenant General Barry, who when growing up would frequent the Solwezi airstrip just to catch a glimpse of some aircrafts as they took off or landed.
Whenever we went abroad, we would obviously fly. And it didn't take long for me to fall in love with an aeroplane. So every time we would go, my father knew the procedure. He would have to go and ask the pilot if I could go to the cockpit. And that was my dream from, even if you ask, my mother always mentions, says, when you were, just from the time you could walk, almost, you started looking at airplanes. So I must say that even when I proceeded to grow in my interest in airplanes, it was mostly transport planes, civil airlines. British Caledonia those days was the airline that we used to use, British Airways and which other one? Zambia Airways as well. And the best part of going on holiday for me was actually just the aeroplane flight. So coming back to Zambia, it was my parents, even as I got older, they would always take me on a Sunday and everybody else to the Solwezi airport, where once a week there was whether it was a Hawker Siddeley or Hawker Siddeley or an ATR 42 would land. And just to see that aircraft landing, passengers jumping in there and taking off was enough to just make my day. So every Sunday, that's what our job was, our treat was. When I went to England, even in my subjects, there were certain subjects like sewing, there was art, there was cookery, there was French. And I got there in grade 11 and I said, no, that's not for me. So whenever they had those subjects, I would skip class, go to the library and study my physics, my maths, my chemistry, my geography, all those. And so when they asked me why, and I said, nope, I'm going back to fly. We've got Zambia Airways, that's where I'm going. Came back with that attitude, having written my exams, and grade 12, GCSE, the English ones, came back and wanted to join Zambia Airways. They said, wait until such and such a time. I don't know if they told me wait until a year from now. I waited a whole year out of school. And then a month before I was supposed to go and ask them, when they said, come, we'll train you. I believe we're going to be trained in Italy or something like that. Then they went, they went bankrupt. It just no longer existed. That was devastating. I thought, what happens now?
But how did he join the Zambia Air Force 28 years ago?
In that maybe slump in my life, I then started watching TV and think it was a movie, Top Gun, where they're showing fighter pilots and what. And then I looked at that, thought that doesn't look so bad. And then recruitment came to Solwezi from the Air Force, and I think it was my mother said, but why don't you, do you know there's recruitment here? I said, yeah, but not really. Let's just go and try. And I went there, showed my papers. A very nice man, Colonel Ngambi, may his soul rest in peace. He was a meteorology officer. He encouraged, he was surprised, looked at me, what do you want? I said, I'd like to join. Really? Are you Zambian? I said, yes. Green registration card, this, that. He said, okay, everything is okay, but I need you to do one thing. You still have part British citizenship. So I need you to go to the court, magistrate court, and renounce that British citizenship. He said, you may need to ask your parents about this. It wasn't long. I came back with that same document, having renounced my British citizenship without my parents. Afterwards, I told them, and I think they wanted to question. I said, no, I think this needs to be done. Hand it over. And he was so impressed, says, I think we might have something for you, but let's see. A few months later, a newspaper with about 7 pages of names, and I was selected. And that's how I came to the Air Force. From there, it's maybe just my attitude of not wanting to fail that pushed me. My military training was tough. Racism in those days was not so much, but I did experience a few of those incidences. And I'll tell you, one of them was where my drill instructor took me out of the barracks and punished me the whole night. And at some point he says, I'm just waiting for you to go. That's what he said. And he said, I'm waiting for it. Have you had enough yet? I said, no, sir, I'm not. And eventually, somewhere out of my anger, I stood up and I pointed in his face and I said, you will salute me one day. I was a cadet. He was a flight sergeant. I said, you will salute me one day. He got a little bit startled, and afterwards I went back down and continued doing with my press-ups or whatever I was being told to do. And that's when he says, on your feet, get to bed. I stood up, and the usual response is, thank you, sir. And I was walking away. Then he says, I don't know what he said. He got my attention. He called my name. And as I turned around, he saluted and said, good night, sir. That was really something. He was the first person to run up to me when I got commissioned to come and pick up my weapon, because as an officer, you're not allowed to hold weapons immediately after you are commissioned. He was the first person came sprinting up to me to pick up the rifle and salute me. Congratulations, sir. And ever since then, everything I did, he was one of the first to always congratulate me or come and see me to pass his congratulations. He's the late now. I won't mention his name, but others would know him if I just mentioned.
A year after joining ZAF as a commissioned officer, Collin Barry rose up the ranks of the Zambia Air Force.
I've gone to all the ranks, obviously. Second lieutenant, that was in '94. Lieutenant in 1997, as full lieutenant. And that's when I became an instructor at lieutenant rank. Captain, 2001. Major was at 2004. So Lieutenant Colonel 2009. And then Colonel 2013. Then I was promoted to Brigadier General in 2019. Then you know the rest. Lieutenant General on 30th of August 2021.
Flying training has been one major area of interest for the new ZAF commander, who has undergone several trainings just for him to serve his country better.
Oh, it goes up. Yeah, just keep it down to 10. Where it says 10, keep it. Okay? I'm a Category A qualified flying instructor. I have over 4,000 hours flying piston, turboprop, and jet aircraft. Before I was brought here, I was Air Officer Commanding Strike Command. I was in charge of Strike Command, which is a formation of the Air Force, which is responsible for, it's the offensive part of the Air Force in the air operation realm. And I hold although it's a lapsed, but I hold a commercial pilot's license, but it's only on a single engine Cessna 182, which I hope to improve upon. I have a number of, apart from my instructor's qualifications, which I got all from here within the Air Force. I did not train for any of my flying experience outside. Everything was within Zambia Flying Training School. I've done the crew resource management course, quite a number of them actually. I have done a teaching methodology course. I went to the US for, I'll just maybe explain, then you'll see them. I went to the US for a jet engine mishap investigation course. In other words, it's a course to do with, these are all to do with accident investigation. An international flight safety officers course. I did my senior military command and staff course here at Kamwala, at the command and staff college there. Then I went to China for defense and strategic studies course, for which I hold an advanced diploma. And then I have a master's degree in national security strategy, which I also obtained from China in my year there. I think that says quite a bit. I've been 18 years of both flying and ground instruction experience, and I can just tell you that if there's any pilot out there now, apart from just a handful, I had a part to play in their training. I wouldn't say I was their main trainer, but I was at the school for 6 years, heading the school, but a total of 18 years at that school, the flying training school in Livingston. So in that 18 years, I think that covers the bulk of the pilots that are flying now, that passed through the school when I was there.
Not so long ago, Lieutenant General Barry was part of the Mumba flood disaster rescue team. He shares his experience.
At the time I was in Mumba, I was the general in charge there, as I mentioned, at Strike Command. We got the news of a flooding incident that took place. We were initially not really sure how big it was, because we thought it was just a rainfall. But when later on we found out that it was the bursting of a dam, it sort of brought the seriousness of that situation to light. It was a tragic situation. We lost, if I'm not mistaken, we lost 3 lives there. And our job was simply to respond as quickly as possible. We mobilized as a base the fire and rescue services there, which comprises of the ambulances and the fire tenders, and we got troops together with some troop carriers to go in and see if they could help out. We're not typically equipped well for that kind of response, but I must say that the work that our men put in there was heartwarming. It really was, to see people in uniform in the water wading up to their chests, trying to make a human chain to pull people out of places. You know, it was really, really, really encouraging. Of course, we worked with the DMMU. Our job eventually was to just provide whatever assistance, because we are the biggest military formation in that district. So yes, we worked closely with the government authorities, and of course there were some photos taken. that eventually got leaked and then had a lot of comments. Some of them were quite interesting. But yeah, that lasted only my involvement there, because after 2 days, I just worked for, I think my involvement there personally was for about 2 days. Then after that, the others went in to continue the work that we had already started. Yeah, but we just tried to do the best we could, and it's just unfortunate that we still lost a few lives.
Zambia Air Force, by virtue of being the Commander-in-Chief of the Zambia Air Forces, I hereby appoint Brigadier General Collin Barry to be the new Air Force Commander and promote him to the rank of Lieutenant General in the Zambia Air Force with immediate effect.
But how did the news of his promotion as ZAF Commander reach his ears?
I was relaxing in Mumbwa with my wife after having a late lunch, two glasses of wine. And after that lunch, we said, this is the only glass of wine we're having, let's put away. We started putting away the bottles, the bottle of wine, and then somebody phoned my wife, and I could just hear screaming on the phone, and I thought something had gone wrong. But the screams were of happiness. And then they said, switch on the TV, check. We said, no, you're not serious, it can't be. Switch on the TV. We switched it on, and we had missed the part that we had been. And then the first phone call I got personally was from the outgoing Air Force Commander, General Muma, who sounded very pleased and congratulated me. So the first person I spoke to, that's amazing.
I, Collin Barry, having been appointed Air Force Commander, do swear that I will well and truly serve the Republic and President of Zambia, that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the President and the Republic of Zambia, that I will preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of Zambia as by law established, and that I will not directly or indirectly reveal or transmit any such information or matter as shall be brought under my consideration or shall be made known to me by reason of my office, except as may be required in the discharge of my duties as such or with the authority of the President. So help me God.
I received it with great honor. I will tell you, it was, you always aim to be at the top. You always aim to be the best. But when it comes, if it truly comes the right way, then it comes as a shock. You can be expectant, you can be hopeful. But I think when it comes, the best way for it to arrive, if it's truly something that you deserve, I think it should be a humbling experience. And it was indeed. It was a shock. I'm still trying to get over it, actually. I'm still trying to get over the gravity of this whole appointment.
As ZAF Commander, Lieutenant General Barry hopes to leave the Air Force better than he found it, building on the achievements of his predecessors.
My plans for the Air Force, you know, I acknowledge we have a good Air Force. A lot of work has been put into making it what it is right now. It's an Air Force that is respected in the region. It was never before. It was very rarely, maybe a long time ago is when it was, but now, because of what we are achieving, because of our professionalism and what we do, we are respected quite well within the sub-region. And above there, actually, in even the northern regions. So we're not going to take anything away from that. I would like us to see how we can be more technology-based going forward, because the challenges, the global challenges and the global threats are all technology-based. Most of them are technology-based, or if not, can be addressed by use of technology. So I think, yes, but that's something that we'll have to look at. It's obviously an expensive thing to modernize, which I know we're continuously modernizing, but I think the step towards more technology-based systems needs to be emphasized. It needs political will, but we are very sure that we are just one of those maybe areas that's going to be looked at. But I feel that we will have to be patient. The economy is what is really the big question on everybody's minds. We may be seeing a few projects maybe put on hold for a while until we get the main thing, which is the economy up and running. Presidential pronouncements are that that is key. Yes, the economy, the life, quality of life, which is out there now, it's a bit of a challenge for a lot of people. It's a big challenge for a lot of people. So we'll see what we can do. But we'll hold the fort. Our job is to provide security and ensure the sovereignty of our airspace, territorial integrity of the nation of Zambia is upheld. We are capable of doing it. As we are capable of doing it. But obviously we always want to get better. In our family, we're all different shades of color.
Okay.
I'm the lightest one.
Okay.
So if any of my others had joined the Air Force, I think the frenzy that's going around wouldn't have been half as much as what we're getting now.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so just ironically that it's ironic that I'm the one that goes into a place that makes it look more difficult. But yeah, but we're all just same family, but different shades of color. So yeah, but that's just an interesting part. As much as I talk about the racist issue that really is hitting social media, and that's what's creating, making people lose time because they're just always following this thing. I'd like to mention very clearly that I feel the Air Force is my home. I talked of those incidences when I was young. It was just maybe the issue of acceptance that maybe this was not right. Who is this guy coming in spoon-fed? Must have been brought in by somebody big, and so I understand that. But from that time onwards, as probably from the rank of lieutenant, second lieutenant onwards, I can tell you this truly, I've not seen anything to do with racism in this Air Force, neither in the Army or the ZNS. And I'd like to mention that when I put on this uniform, I can't walk 5 meters without a strange look out there. But when I put on this uniform in a military cantonment, there is no such reaction. I've never noticed it. I've never seen it, and I don't see it having been a factor in any way. I've never seen it. I've never felt it. I've never heard it, and I want to be clear on that. That is something I'm very proud of. And when I take off this uniform and hang it up, that will be something that I always miss, being comfortable. Because let me walk into a shop. I've seen people even in shops where I'm coming from, in Mumbwa. He passes and he'll pass a comment, "Go home, what are you doing here? Go back to your country, what are you doing here?" And I'll just pass him by. But it's those who are around me who now go, "Hey, what are you saying? Why you don't even know that he's..." So I've stopped that. I've stopped asking for people to be polite about it. You go into a market, you'll just be harassed there. Until I start talking Nyanja or speaking in the language that, you know, then that's when they, oh, he's one of us. But you have to sort of pass the check when you're out there by having maybe friends around you who will talk with you, and, you know, and then that's when others will say, oh, but if he's with him, then okay, let's, you know. But in the Defense Force, there's no such thing. You walk into a gate, no matter what base, what unit, I'll see a surprised look, but I'll get the same response that anybody else will get. So that's a very positive thing I'd like to say to the nation, to everybody at large. And there's all this about, no, who is this joining? Why is he? I've got officers out here. Ask them, go and see. Go and ask. Not one who say, Mzungu. No. He says, he's ours.
Rising through the ranks, Lieutenant General Barry has 8 medals to his name: Commission Medal, Proficiency Medal, Distinguished Flying Medal, African Union Operation Medal, United Nations Medal, DRC Medal, 40th Anniversary Medal, and the 50th Anniversary Medal. Lieutenant General Barry has spent more than half of his life on Earth serving Zambia Air Force in an exemplary manner. From the years that Lieutenant General Barry has spent in the Zambia Air Force and experience he possesses, it is safe to say that the Zambia Air Force is in safe hands.